Drive boy, dive boy, dirty numb, angel boy. In the doorway boy, she was a lipstick boy. She was a beautiful boy and tears boy and all in your inner space boy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now floating in Screamacelica. My name's Kevin Graham, and as usual on this fine Tuesday evening, I'm joined by Russell Boyce. Russell, what's happening?
How we doing, Kev? That was Born Slippy, I believe, that we got as the intro there.
It was a bit of Born Slippy. There was a bit of Born Slippy. I thought would bring us kind of up to date. Kind of up to date.
I think I know what you've done with it, but aye. Very good.
If anybody else can get it, they can actually put it in the comments.
There's Born Slippy, mate. I get it. I'm good though, mate. I'm good. It's Tuesday night. Screamacelica time, man. This is what it's all about, mate. It's a cult show now, man.
I know. I love it. It's a great cult show. I'm going to put this out there. If anybody wants to get their name round about us and give us a wee sponsor and that, just get in touch, and you can go to quite a large audience on the State of Mind platform, eh? Now,
aye, definitely.
We spoke about this top last week, and there were some folk in the comments who didn't believe I'd be able to fit in my original top. So this is the original top that I bought 2 days before the 1995 Scottish Cup final. So brilliant. I can still fit into it. It must have absolutely drowned me when I actually bought it in 1995. But I just say as well, somebody in the comments says it must be like a cycling shirt. No, there's still room. Yeah.
And you made them so baggy then, eh?
I know.
Anything away for your physique. But that was my first ever Celtic shirt as well.
Talk me through your shirt. What's happening there?
Just dressed down a wee bit tonight, Kev. You know, just a wee normal Paisley number the night, mate. Nothing too flash. But I'm sticking with the sort of outlines on my collar after my Fran Alonso jacket, so...
I know. I thought you and Fran Alonso were going for the reboot of Miami Vice on Sunday with those jackets, Crockett and Tubbs. Well, a wee bit of the Dukes of Hazzard thrown in. You're a bit Bo Duke. Was it Bo or was it Luke? Can't I remember what one was which in the Dukes of Hazzard.
As much as I'm a fan, there is a wee bit, I don't know if folk will remember, like, in Friends when they used to go like back in time, do you know what I mean? And they'd show like Ross and Chandler in like the 80s or whatever, like showing them like growing up. And it's like Ross and Chandler in white blazers with his sleeves rolled up in the mat. He's got the perm, eh?
With the flock of seagulls. Mullet.
Aye.
The flock of seagulls with mullet, aye. Right, before we get going, as usual, I'll ask you a question. And it's based on the song that I done at the start there, eh?
Sure.
Russell, have you ever been mega going back to Romford? Whatever that means. Whatever that means.
I don't know, but I kind of want to now.
I know, it sounds quite good, eh? So the DeLorean has went back to the 19th of February 2015. And me and you are in Turnstiles, that great establishment just on the outside of Celtic Park. Was it even called Turnstiles then? I don't actually know if it was called Turnstiles then. But anyway, we're waiting on the Inter Milan Ultras, the Boyce Sands. That's what one thing I love about the Italian football culture is like their ultra groups. Obviously, this is they were right at the heart of the ultra culture. But when you see ultra culture in this country, everybody tries to look the same. Like, they'll have to be dressed in a certain way. They'll have to have the gazelles, the sort of skinny jeans and all that. When you look at a curva in Italy, it's a mismatch of society. And you've got the guys who have based themselves on like English, like British casual culture, but then you've just also got the guys who are hippies, you've got guys who are punks, you've got guys who are like, all styles are encompassed. And I sometimes think when you have a British match going, crowd, why do we all try to look the same? There doesn't seem to be a big massive difference in like when you see the curvers in Italy, there's all different elements of society, whereas our football crowd, a lot of the people all try to look the same. Why do you think that is?
It's a strange one, isn't it? I suppose it's a sign of we're all in this together, don't want to... I don't know. I can't really relate to it, to be honest with you, Kev. I mean, I didn't really... I can't say I've ever looked at my mate and thought, we're dressed the same today. I don't think that's ever happened to me, mate, to be honest with you. I suppose it's a bit like wearing... It's like wearing the strip, isn't it? And it's like, it's a sign of like unity. They're all together, they're all in it together, and they all want to look kind of like a I don't know, like a unit.
I know it's got a sort of military vibe on it, but like when you look at the Italian, if you look at it, like I remember the Drughi, the Juventus casuals, the Juventus ultras coming to Celtic Park, and they looked like a unit. They looked like a serious mob, but they were all dressed differently. Then I remember one time being at Old Trafford, seeing the Man United men in black, and obviously they were all dressed in black. Somebody comes in there. Where is it? Where's that comment? Daniel Mack comes in. The Green Brigade could be doing with a few goths. That would look good. that would look like a couple of Robert Cure looking guys and then I just can't get enough and bouncing back and forward. I would love that.
That'd be brilliant.
I guess just I think it shows the mentality of certain sections of society. I mean, if you look at the boys group at Celtic Park, they all dress in black as well. If you ever see them walking towards you, I think it's an intimidation thing with them. They all look the same. They've all got the same like North Face jackets on and all of that. And I'm going, why would you want to do that? You look more interesting, all looking different. You look more like you look more inclusive. All looking different than, no, you can't get into your team unless you've got a pair of green and white gazelles and a Berkou's jacket. If you can what I mean, That's anyway, right, back to that night, the 19th of February 2015. It's the last 32 of the Europa League. And I had to go back and remember how we had managed to get to the last 32, because I was struggling to remember. But we were in a group with Red Bull Salzburg, Dynamo Zagreb, and Astra from Romania, and we qualified with 8 points. So the 8 points, we had 2 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses. The 2 wins were at home to Zagreb and Astra, and the 2 draws were against Astra away from home, and we got a credible draw with Red Bull Salzburg in Salzburg on the opening day, which was the day of the Scottish independence referendum. Mm-hmm. That was the night that game was played, and Celtic wore their tartan kit that night. I don't know if that was any sort of... I'm hoping it was a sort of political statement. I know it probably wouldn't be, but in my mind I want that to be a political statement that they had the tartan bit down there.
Down like that?
Aye.
Like, it sort of crossed over here, I mind that. That was quite smart. That was like dark green. It was like yellow.
Dark green. Aye. And what's his name? Wakaso scored a peachy goal that night. Mm-hmm. But we'll get onto that team later on. Now, this was the first time we had played Inter Milan from 1972 in the European Cup final in 1972 when we were beat on penalties. Obviously, Celtic done. Producer Paul comes in and says, "I got married that day again." In the comments. I think he was talking about the day that we drew 2 each with Salzburg, no the night that we drew 3 each with Inter that we're talking about just now. So, as usual, Celtic do the old trope, they get the Lisbon Lions on the pitch before the game. And it's obviously they are going to get the Lions on the pitch because it's a selling point. We're playing Inter Milan again. Get the greatest Celtic team in history.
Yeah,
but back on the pitch. But even then, sometimes you just go, "Aye, right, here they come again." But fair enough. I'm not going to hang with that. Ronnie Dyler says about before this game, when he was talking about the Lisbon Lions and Lisbon '67 and stuff like that, he says, "I have to make history, not watch it." That's what he says.
That's a good quote, that, from Ronnie Dyler, in fairness.
It is a very good quote. It is a very good quote. Now, we're playing the manager of Inter at that time, and I forgot about this, was Roberto Mancini. Was the manager the second spell at Inter. And they were sitting 10th in Serie A, and it wasn't going too well for Roberto Mancini at that time, but they're still a big, massive name. Celtic v Inter Milan has got historical connotations in Europe, no matter how the teams are doing. It's the names, it's the weight of the heritage in the names, which makes it a star attraction in the last 32. I was having a look at that last 32 draw. We were the biggest game. We were the biggest tie. When you have a look at that, all UEFA were focused on Celtic Park that night because it was a meeting of two heavyweight European teams. Maybe our best days are buyers. Well, Inter Milan are going to win Serie A this season. You can maybe see what they're going to do in the next couple of years. But at that point, maybe our best days were buyers. We weren't in the elite anymore, but it was still a massive tie in Europe. Exactly. All the eyes of Europe were on us. Ronnie Dyler says before this game, I love this quote, "I spoke about getting goosebumps before it. If I don't get them tonight, I may as well quit football." You can just drop the mic, That is, if you want somebody to set up a game, that's setting up a game. To say, I want yous to, this is going to be a spectacle. This is going to be a fantastic night for us. Were you at the game that night, Russell?
I wasn't. I was working again, mate. I remember watching it from behind the bar at the pub. Sadly, such as my life been, mate. I missed a lot of the football, but I mean, no, I watched it from behind the pub. I always remember it crystal clearly. One of those games that I think before it there was a not that same vibe that we had only maybe a few years before under Lennon, when I think if Inter were coming under that Lennon team, then we would have fancied our chances to get the result at home. And I remember that tie being with a wee bit of trepidation. It was exciting, yes, and I get what you're saying about the names and stuff. But I mean, for me as a fan at the time, just going on about the actual team on the pitch, I was worried before that game, to be totally honest with you. I wasn't on a Ronnie Dyler bus, shall we say, and expecting it to be a big win. I felt more trepidation ahead of that game than what I had only a couple of years before under Lenny. You know, as much as the result against Barcelona goes into total folklore, that aside, I remember like that team when Spartak Moscow come, we had to win to get through the Champions League group, and knowing we would win, that was the truth. I never felt that sort. I know we got out the group and all that, but I think at the start of the season, obviously there'd been issues getting in the Champions League because Dyler had failed in that, hadn't he? He'd failed to qualify for the Champions League. The season hadn't started, or the first half of the season, we should say, hadn't filled us with a crazy amount of confidence, I think it would be fair to say. And then, looking ahead to the game, it was very much one that I just thought, try and keep them at bay. Try not to concede an early goal. Try not to concede 2 early goals. You know what I mean? It was. I thought if we'd kept it tight, it was the type of game that if we were going to win, it would be very much in the style that we did get a late goal. But it might have been, you know, if we wanted to win the game, that had to have been a 1-0. If we wanted to win the tie, sorry, because I feel that we had to not concede at home and like try and just withstand the pressure, try and grow into the game, and then hopefully nick a late one like we've done so many times. But I'll be honest with you, going into the game, I was not fully confident that night in the slightest.
I was fully embracing it. I was there that night. I was fully embracing it. It was a big, big cup tie. And the way I look at it, if you're going to go out to Europe, let's go out to a big name. Let's go out and give them a battering at Celtic Park, and let's make them work for the result. That's all I look for at Europe. It doesn't matter what size a team comes to Celtic Park. If they're going to get a result at Celtic Park, I want them to work for it. I want them to be scared that what's actually happening round about them. And I think this happened in this game to a certain point. This is one of the best nights at Celtic Park I've ever had European ties. And it's a tie that we didn't win. It's up there with what I would say, it shows you the different mentality of the Celtic fans that we rate this game. A 3-each draw, we think it's an absolutely fantastic game. And it's the same with the Partizan Belgrade game. You talk to a generation behind me who were at the Partizan Belgrade game at Celtic Park and go, one of my greatest nights ever, but we went out, but who cares? It was fantastic. It was like, that's what makes Celtic so special. And I think this night summed it up. I mean, what I'm going to say, I think the noise this night was phenomenal. It was up there with the Seville nights. Like I remember the Boa Vista Liverpool, the noise we made that this night was absolutely phenomenal. And I'm going to chuck something out there. I may as well get my daft like vibes out the window very far. I believe Celtic Park's haunted.
Right.
I believe Celtic Park's haunted with all the spirits of all the generations of fans that are in your soul. So when you go to Celtic Park, your grandfather, your great-grandfather, your mum, your dad, your brother, your sister, anybody that took you to Celtic Park is there with you. And there's certain nights under the floodlights, they come out. And you go into and you can go into that park and you know it's going to be special. You know it's going to be special. You know that there's more people, there's more than the 58,000 Celtic fans there. I think when folk talk about Celtic Park's special atmosphere, right? I think it's because the place is no haunted. There's spirits in the place. That's what that's going to end up on Kerryfield, but I couldn't give a monkey's if that's going to end up. That's what I believe. I think I've been to too many magical nights at Celtic Park not to believe shit like that. Sorry, Paul.
No, I love that.
That's what I believe anyway. So I may as well get that out there right away.
Definitely. So I was going to just touch on atmosphere and noise because I was saying that I've got a mad theory on this, right, as well. Well, not a mad theory. It's just an observation, right? Now, the first thing that struck me watching the game back, and I watched the extended highlights yesterday at ACSOM HQ, which was great. And basically, when I was watching that, I felt it was a lot noisier than a lot of recent European ties. Now, I've been trying to work out what could be the reason for it not being as G'd up, as you rightly point out. Those Seville days, it was frightening on that run. Like, right, even as the players kicked off, I remember referees like delaying it for a minute, like, well, not a minute, but like 10 seconds to actually blow the whistle just to try and let it all calm down. What they've changed, right, is, so see if it's the Europa League or the Champions League, they play the music and the teams line up, right? They play Europa League music, and then if the Champions League one, I'll not try and sing that, right? But so they stand and line up and do that, right? And now there must be a rule that you're not allowed to then play another tune over the PA. So have you ever noticed that after they line up, it's just the fans that need to come up with a song and start singing to get the place rocking? Whereas before, the Celtic song would start and it would go bonkers, man. Because You'll Never Walk Alone would be done before the anthem tune. And then they would G that up and they'd play it right up until they were going to do the kickoff. As soon as the referee blows, it would stop. Whereas now, there's that gap. And I do think that we lack at times in Europe quite that same fever pitch that we used to generate before.
Somebody can maybe correct me here, but I think you're not allowed to play anything over the PA apart from the competition league tunes since 7:41. I think there's a cut-off time. I'm sure. I read that somewhere.
And I think that's played a part. I think that has played a part because that used to be something that, you know, everyone's screaming when it's particularly when it was Champions League. everyone's screaming like mad when that tune's playing, and then it stops, and then the Celtic song would kick in over the PA, and it just went nuts. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think in that Inter Milan game, though, I've got to say, the reason I'm talking about this is all because I thought, oof, that's one of the most rocking I can remember in the last sort of 10 years.
Well, what you've got to remember, Russell, is we played that group section with a top tier shirt. There was nobody in the top tier in the group games. So there was only like 28,000 at the group games. So this was built up as a big, massive tie. I can't remember how much Celtic charged us for a ticket, but I don't think they overcharged us. Maybe they did. Maybe my memory's playing tricks on me. I'm going to go to a couple of comments. Kevin Hampsey. when I was talking about spirits and ghosts of granddads and fathers and all that, he says, "Hope no, my granddad was a Rangers fan." Well, maybe he's turned. Maybe he's went to the good side now, Kevin. I don't know. maybe he's with you when you're at Celtic Park. Alan Robertson. What former Rangers player was playing centre half for Partizan Belgrade that night? I don't know that one off the top of my head, but I'll think about that. I will think about that one.
Gordon Petric. Gordon Petric.
Johnny Boy 77 asks, Kev, were you at the Cologne game? 2 down for the first leg, we won 3-0. That was some night. Johnny Boy 77, that was my first ever European game at Celtic Park. I was in the jungle that night. Absolutely brilliant. So, going into this game, Ronnie Dyler had a dodgy start. There was no money folk, as you say. Quite rightly says Russell, it was on the Dyler bus. There was no money as on the Dyler bus at that time. But we seemed to have a run of form after I think we went on a winter break to Gran Canaria. I think we went to a winter break on Gran Canaria, and the team seemed to play better after the winter break, unlike Dubai this year. But we won the talk about Dubai. We've spoken that enough. So we're going into this game. Lustig's injured, Chris Commons is injured, and strangely enough, Anthony Stokes is missing for discipline reasons because he arrived back late from Dublin.
So we had this conversation, didn't we, the other week? So
about Anthony Stokes.
When I read that, I can't say I raised an eyebrow in the slightest, Kev. I just thought, I'd actually forgotten about that one, to be fair. But when you read it, you just think, wow, there really was. There's been a lot of instances of stories of that, like with Stokes, which is a shame. I did like the January window helped Dyla as well. We brought in a couple of players for Dundee United. I'm sure you want to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Aye, brought in Gary Mackay-Steven and Stuart Armstrong. Now, Inter Milan trained at Murray Park because Rangers had to offer them Murray Park just to be like have some relevance on a European night at that point, because I think they were probably playing Alloa or something like that weekend or that night. So to give some relevance, they had to offer Inter Milan the finest facilities in Auchenhowie, the only facilities in Auchenhowie. But so the team that night, Craig Gordon in goals, Adam Matthews, Denayer, Virgil van Dijk, Izagiri, Scott Brown, Near Beaton, Gary Mackay-Steven, Stefan Johansson, Stuart Armstrong and Lee Griffiths. What's your first thought of that team?
First thought is straight away the centre-half partnership. That would be the Lyon captain and very often the Liverpool captain, also Liverpool's best player right now. In that squad by a country mile at present. So I think you'd be looking at that centre-back partnership right now, if paired together at any European team right now in 2021, would be regarded as a fearsome centre-back pairing to have. If I'm totally honest, I wasn't always sold on Denayer at times. I know everyone loved him. I don't know. I wasn't always sold on him, I've got to be honest. I don't know why. I know he's went on leaps and bounds and, he's maybe at times never took it seriously. I don't know. I know he won a Player of the Year, a Young Player of the Year award. But, I mean, what he's done at Lyon since is incredible. But I mean, you just look at those two names, and they do it. You know, you look where they are now. Both of them leaders in big European clubs. You know, Lyon's still a big European team that often compete in the Champions League in the top end of Ligue 1. And then you look at Liverpool, obviously recently Premier League champions, European champions, all with Virgil at the back. So that sticks out to me as being one heck of a centre-back pairing I've had.
I think it's one of the best centre-back pairings I've ever seen, watching Celtic. And the 40-odd year I've been watching Celtic. They were a partnership, they were athletic, they were two modern-day centre-halves. And even though at this point both of them still had rusty edges, I would kill for a centre-half pairing like that just now.
Oh,
I would bite your right leg off.
I get that.
For a centre-half pairing like that just now. In the middle of the park, the two sitting midfielders are Brown and Beaton. If somebody would have asked me, did Near Beaton play that night, I would have went, nah, he didn't. No, he didn't play that night, but him and Brown were the two sitters in the middle of the park. Want to ken who I really liked in that team? I liked Stefan Johansson. I did like Stefan Johansson. I know he was a bit of Marmite with some people, but I liked his energy. I liked his creativity. He was a wee bit inconsistent, but that can be says a lot about a lot of the players under Ronnie Dyla's side. What did you think of Stefan Johansson, who's now playing for Queen's Park Rangers? So I found it.
Is that what he is now? Is he left Fulham?
He's on loan from Fulham at Queen's Park Rangers underneath the next England manager, Mark Warburton.
I think with Johansson, he was a workhorse, wasn't he? He gave his all. He was always good for sort of late runs into the box, chipping in with the odd goal. He was all action. I thought he was one of those players that, again, I don't know how long he was at Celtic for, 3 years maybe, but maybe had more admirers in his first sort of 18 months to 24 months at Celtic, and in the end, I think he only left for Fulham for the same fee that we paid for him. I think it was $2 million. And I think if you look at his first 18 months at Celtic, and you think you would have had admirers then, you wonder what sort of money we potentially could have gotten. Why was it his form did that? And what happened there, you know? But fair play to him. He was always something that I felt gave his all. I like that. And I think he was a talented footballer, don't get me wrong. You don't play week in, week out for Fulham at the top end of the Championship, you know, week in, week out if you're a mug. It's as simple as that. And no, I'm happy that he's had a decent career.
Yes, he's went to Fulham and he's done really well with Fulham, and he's still playing at a decent... He's retired for international football now. So right. he must be in his 30s now. So
31.
He must be round about that. I think he left, and this is only. I'm going to deal with rumours here. There was a clique in that. There was a clique in that dressing room at that time. Ronnie Dyla felt it as well when he tried to bring in players of. When Ronnie Dyla tried to bring in the diet, change of coach and stuff like that, there were certain players bought into it and certain players didn't. And what the rumour was, what actually happened was Denier, Virgil van Dijk, Beaton and Johansson were a clique. They were a tight group. They were the alpha males in that dressing room.
Denier, Van Dijk,
Beaton, Johansson. Beaton, yes. Beaton's Stefan Johansson's best pal.
And they were alpha males?
Yes, they were a dominant group in that dressing room. And once Van Dijk went, it collapsed. And that's how a lot of those players left after it. After Van Dijk left, the old school players, your Browns, your Griffiths, Commons, and players like that, who all were chased by Brendan Rodgers quite quickly, apart from Scott Brown, became the dominant force in that dressing room. And Ronnie Dyla was on a hiding to nothing when basically that happened. I went to a Celtic Supporters Association rally at Celtic Park, and the team were basically split into two, and those players that were mentioned were sitting at a separate table from the rest of the squad.
That's not good, is it?
That isn't good, no. And so,
what do you think? What do you think about that diet stuff, right? Because let me be honest here. Do you think Brendan Rodgers was letting them do their old school, as you want to call it, diet? No. So why would they listen to him, and why would they not listen to Ronnie Dyler? Is it all about, your reputation, your aura, or is it about how they were telling them to do it, the manner of? I mean, is it that petty these days? I don't know. I'm not saying either's right or wrong or whatever, but quite obviously, whatever diet Ronnie Dyler and his team wanted the players on, I would guess, would be a forward-thinking, modern club sort of way that would be very much up the same street as Brendan Rodgers. That would be my, without any basing it on any knowledge, but that from a perception point of view, I would have thought those two managers were cut for the same cloth in terms of diet and all that.
They were cut from the same cloth, as in they were development managers, but what I would say, a lot of the players didn't buy into Ronnie Dyler's diet. Dyler's diet was basically very, for the want of a better word, caveman-like, raw meat. Yeah, and a lot of the players didn't rating. It was all plain chicken, rice. It was very, very plain. Whereas I'm not a nutritionist, so I didn't ken. Obviously, I'm not a nutritionist. I eat kebabs and hoagies and stuff like that. I'm not a nutritionist. But a lot of the players didn't buy into the diet. But I just reckon it was down to, as the dude Bibes come in and says, Brendan Rodgers commanded respect when he came in because the fact that he had been the manager of Liverpool.
But is that good enough that we've got players that just take that as he's been at Liverpool, so we'll listen to him tell us one thing. That guy who's not been at Liverpool, we won't listen to that. That to me is shocking. Because at the end of the day, they get paid the exact same each week.
It's life, I think. It's life in football. If a manager loses the dressing room and a different voice comes in and tells you things in a completely different way, then you maybe buy into it. But another guy could come in and tell you to do the exact same thing in a different way. Maybe not as clear, maybe not as precise. Maybe doesn't make you feel like you're on top of the world. Then you wouldn't do it.
Was Ronnie given a fair crack of the whip by the players? Not anyone else, just the players.
No, not at all. I don't think so. I don't think Ronnie was given a fair crack of the whip with the players. But he done the right thing and left when he knew it wasn't working for him. And some Brown Warrior comes in with a great point. Rodgers walked into a system already in place for 2 years, hence why he never changed it. I think the culture of change started under Ronnie Dyler and Brendan Rodgers and Chris Davis, because Chris Davis is a major part of Brendan Rodgers' success, supercharged it, took it to a different level. But there was a lot of players there who had already seen the benefits of what Ronnie Dyler was trying to implement. Players that benefited, like your Stuart Armstrongs. When you look at the Invincible team, the majority of them were signed by Ronnie Dyler.
Yeah, totally.
Which I think is testament to Dyler's legacy at Celtic. And it was interesting that the MLS started this weekend and his New York City team, because you've got to remember Ronnie Dyler. 5-1. You've got to remember, Ronnie Dyler came recommended to us by the Man City group. Yep. Here we're going back to the Man City connection. And the Man City group have appointed him to be New York's manager.
Well, exactly.
Coach, So he obviously is highly rated with some of the elite football decision makers in the world, but the Scottish press call him a failure for winning 3 trophies in 2 seasons. Some managers would kill to win 3 trophies in 2 seasons.
Well, exactly. I think that's a brilliant point, Kevin. You look at what he actually did. The stones that he was. What would you call it? The stepping stones he put in place. Mm-hmm. For Rodgers. Now, don't get me wrong, as much as it's testament to Dyler, Brendan Rodgers deserves a lot of credit for the improvement that he overseen in players and the overhaul we expected to happen when Rodgers took over, didn't he? Now, I expected it to be a lot more signings made in that summer, a lot bigger wholesale changes to the squad. We bet not too dissimilar to just now. The difference being, I think we probably didn't appreciate how far along the line Callum McGregor's, Kieran Tierney's had came under Ronnie Dyler. Whereas it seems to me, and I don't want to sound too negative, but in the current team, it seems quite starkly obvious that a lot of those players have in fact regressed in the past 18 months as opposed to be progressing nicely. It'll be interesting to see, though, if the likes of Stephen Welsh become legacies of Neil Lennon's second tenure, and you can only hope that that is the case and there is a positive spin you can put on. You look back at the trophies he won, you can look at someone like Stephen Welsh and go, do you know what? That was good that you got him in the team, mate. And okay, we criticise you not playing him enough, but maybe you got the balance just right then. He was coming along nicely. You never know. Reflection's always a completely different thing when you look back on stuff. And I think with Ronnie Dyler, I think I'm guilty of revisionism. I think a lot of people are guilty on revisionism, and I definitely look now at Ronnie Dyler's time probably in a far nicer light than what I was perhaps feeling towards the end of it.
We do, and we've got Ronnie Dyler to thank for Kieran Tierney as well. He gave Kieran Tierney his debut after Izagiri got injured, and Izagiri got injured, suffered a loss of form. But people in the Celtic Academy will tell you this. At 16, Kieran Tierney was nearly let go. Yeah. And it was Ronnie Dyler that says no. It was Ronnie Dyler that put him training with the first team. So
he elevated him. He didn't play for the reserves or something, Kev. Is that not right?
That's right.
He skipped it or something like that.
And that's all down to Ronnie Dyler.
Yep.
So I want the new man, whoever it is, to come in. And you know me, I want youth, I want to play. I want nights like this that we're going to discuss. And right, a lot of folk are going to say Ronnie Dyler revisionism. Aye, but the narrative's been written. It's in the past. We can now make more informed judgments about what actually happened during that time. And also as well, he would have won a treble if a linesman and a referee would have saw an Inverness Cali player punching a ball off the line.
Totally true, mate.
He would have won a treble. So let's not. Aye, the football was brutal towards the end. It wasn't so good in his first 6 months either, eh? But he gave us a night like this. And for that, I'll be forever thankful. It'll just be the same. I'm ever thankful for Neil Lennon giving us that night in Rome and beating Lazio at Celtic Park as well. You can be thankful. You can be thankful for a manager giving you that night while understanding there had some failings. The two things are mutually exclusive.
They're mutually exclusive, but at the time, at the moment, you've kind of got to be in one camp because you're trying to force change probably at the time. Do you know what I mean? But it's absolutely acceptable. And what you're saying is, when you look back on it, to be looked with a far more balanced judgment, because you're not trying to get your point across that a change has to be made. Or it's not in the here and now either, where negative results are occurring and they're putting you in a negative frame of mind about certain aspects. You're looking at it with a complete fresh set of eyes when you go down these rabbit holes, Kev. You know? As
you say, you've got to be on one side of the wall or the other. That's why I wear baggy trousers, because I like sitting on the wall. I like sitting right in the middle of the wall until the narrative is written. And that's what it says in the comments on Monday. I says, well, we were talking about the game at the weekend because the narrative this season is now written. Rangers have won the league. There's going to be St Johnstone have won the League Cup, and there's going to be one of St Johnstone, St Mirren, Dundee United or Hibs are going to win the Scottish Cup. So we can now look back and go, by the way, see that quadruple treble? That was fucking magic, by the way. because this season, because it's been written, because it's been crystallised, we can now go, because it's hard to do a treble. It's hard to win a double. We've done 4 in a row. So that's the reason that we can have a look at this season now, and since it's crystallised. Let's get to this game. This game's absolutely brilliant. The noise at the start of this game's frightening. The noise and the noise and the atmosphere is absolutely fantastic. But as you says, 25 minutes ago, since we first started discussing this game, 25 minutes ago, man. 3 minutes in, we go a goal in. 3 minutes in, we get our helium balloons burst with a big pin by Shaqiri. Now, again, I wouldn't have believed Shaqiri played for Inter Milan that night.
Would you not?
No.
See, I do remember that. That Shaqiri played, because he was one of the big names at the time that was there. I think he had been at Bayern Munich before that.
Yes, he had.
And he was quality there as well, but he just couldn't get a regular game. Kind of common theme throughout his career. But that goal, Craig Gordon saves a shot that's, I don't even think it's hitting the side net and it's going that far wide.
No, it's gone wide. It's gone wide. It's complete. For me, it's complete panic with Craig Gordon. You're talking about an atmosphere inspiring people. I think Craig Gordon actually went into his shell and panicked to be trying to palm that ball.
And where's he trying to panic, Kev?
Well,
straight back there. You're like, if you're going to save it at your near post at that, you push it out for the corner. Sure, not that I'm a goalkeeper, like, but surely, and I think you're right, I think it's a save without thinking. He's made a save completely just impulsively. He's not taking into his positioning into consideration. He's not thinking about what he's actually doing with his hands and where he's going to put the ball if he does save it, which they work on all the time, pushing it around the post or getting good distance on it if it's going to go out the box, punching it if necessary. He's dived down to a shot that he should know is going wide, and then not only that, rebounds it straight back to the forward, Shaqiri again. It's a baffling bit of goalkeeping that, and I think you're absolutely right. I think it is someone who has been swallowed up by the atmosphere, which, in fairness to Craig Gordon, by the way, he 100% grew into in his Celtic career massively, and I've got, I'm not questioning his. And I know he played big games before then with Scotland and probably a few down at Sunderland if he was lucky. But I mean, I think when it comes to that night, I think that was because, as well, like you say, top tier shut for that long. Suddenly they walk into this and they're going, what? That's maybe some of them, their first time. Do you know what I mean? Like seeing this in a long time anyway for a lot of the players. And it's caught him unawares, definitely.
There's an old cliche that the keeper likes to have a touch of the ball. Like the goalkeeper gets a touch to get a feel of the ball. And that save kind of sums it up for me. It's almost as if it was going through his head. I need to make that save. I need to get myself into this game, to get myself into the flow and the rhythm of the game. And he didn't need to do it. I mean, it's a long ball, and Shaqiri's played on side by Izagiri, and as it's been said in the comments, even though we've got Denayer and Van Dijk, we had a horrible set first half. I mean, you lose 3 goals in the first half. The defence has not had a good game. No. Van Dijk's slow to react. As you say, Gordon saves it, rebounds back, and it's a decent finish by with Shaqiri. But what I liked about it is Gordon boots the ball away. Like a teenager trying to boot a dog. He just pumps the ball, and that's one thing about Craig Gordon. Craig Gordon never seemed to age. When you look at him now, he still looks like the 19-year-old Craig Gordon.
Mad.
It's complete madness. I think he's been in one of the chambers that keeps you young.
I don't think he's had any hoagies or kebabs anyway.
No, it doesn't look like that anyway.
That's mad. But I think you're right. It's so funny you brought that up, because I was looking at his appearance in it and going, what's the script with him? All he's done is had a beard recently. I mean, he still looks the exact same. Man.
I know. So 12 minutes. As soon as they score, the Celtic fans start singing again. You can hear it in the highlights again. The Celtic fans, you hear the drums going for the Green Brigade, and the Celtic fans are back into it. 12 minutes, we lose another horror goal for a set play. So Inter play the set play to the edge of the box. The guy sort of scuffs it in. As Aguirre goes to clear the ball, it hits Van Dijk in the face and falls to Palacios, who nutmegs Craig Gordon with this. And you go, 12 minutes in, we're 2-0 down, and you can hear the silence as soon as he scores that in the highlights, and you can hear that. I mean, what a horrible goal to lose. They're the only goals I ever seen to see Celtic losing in Europe. I never see any other clubs losing a goal where the full-back batters it into the centre half's face and it drops to the centre forward.
I think at that point, you see when you watch it back, it's like the defence at that point was like a backline of Craig Gordon's in the 3rd minute, and there's just a wee moment It just looks a wee bit like we were just rattled, just flapping. The communication obviously was not there. Do you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, it's hard to hear yourself, I get that, but I would guess that that's not how they worked on defending that set play.
No.
And it's like they've lost their wits about them, do you know what I mean, a wee bit? And they've got to take that as a unit at the time, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. They've got to, I mean, Azagiri just tries to put his laces through the ball, a Sunday league clearance, and he fires it straight into Van Dijk's cutting. I mean, it's just one of those things that you can't stop.
But it's a panic moment as well. I still think that it does sum up what you said about the atmosphere and Gordon. I think that Izagiri encapsulates that a lot of them must have been, because it had been so long. Anyway,
No, right, here's a question for you. The Seville team, the Martin O'Neill team, thrived in that atmosphere. Do you think this team crumbled in the atmosphere in that first 12 minutes?
I think there's a big difference between the fact that Martin O'Neill's team was used to it. Martin O'Neill's team.
Right, good point.
Martin O'Neill's first season there was not all about based on Europe, but was getting a lot of atmospheres like that because we were on the cusp of, this unbelievable points turnaround in the league, this first title in 3-4 years, whatever it was, and just watching a team that everyone loved on the pitch. And I think they were, as much as they didn't do well in Europe that first season, I think they'd had loads of packed houses, even for every home league game, and they were used to the heat. Whereas I think that team, where you're talking about the top tier not being open, to then walk into what you're then describing as up there, one of the best European atmospheres, up there with Seville, chalk and cheese, mate. Like, that is a huge jump, as opposed to going, there was 60,000 at the Aberdeen game, but it wasn't as rocking as, say, Valencia. But they're closer together, if you know what I mean, whereas this is one extreme to the other, and I think it has caught them unawares.
Obviously, you've got to say that, but then we've got to give the team credit because they get a deep breath and get themselves back into the game. 23 minutes, Adam Matthews on the right-hand side plays a 1-2 with Stefan Johansson. Matthews then bursts into the box and he plays it to the back post where Stuart Armstrong's bursted in to stroke the ball into the back of the net. What I love about this goal is, the place goes mental, but Lee Griffiths runs and grabs the ball and runs right back to the halfway line there. There's no celebrating with Lee Griffiths. He's gone, this is game on. Let's move.
Stuart Armstrong's first start for Celtic at Celtic Park.
Would it be?
I think it was.
His first goal.
First goal maybe at Celtic Park. One of the two. But it was funny because the goal that he scores is so Stuart Armstrong. It became so Stuart Armstrong. It's unreal. Really tidy one-time finish as well, which I love. But Griffith, whilst Armstrong's running away. But I think Armstrong's just feeding off the fans' energy at that point, and it's sort of then you're mirroring it, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? And you're feeling their vibe, and you're giving that vibe back. And but Griffith's just got his head in the game, which I love that attitude as well.
I love that.
A young man then, 25.
Well, he didn't have his hair transplant anyway. That's very noticeable in the.
I know.
Anyway, I shouldn't talk about hair transplants, man. But there we go. There we go. I've embraced mine, or maybe I just can't afford a hair transplant. I don't know what it is. I'm going to say I've embraced it. It shows you. Griffiths taking that ball back to the halfway line. We interview 90 seconds later. The place has still gone mental. We get a throw in 25 yards for the Inter Milan goal. It's Matthews to Johansson. Johansson plays a first ball cross into the box. Lee Griffiths jumps. As it drops, Stuart Armstrong's burst in again at the near post, tries to get a flick on it. It misses it. And it comes off. What was the defender's name again? Campiaro. Hits his knee and goes into the net. Stuart Armstrong, like any good player, claims it.
Quite right.
Quite right. I would claim it as well. You've got to claim it. But I reckon the crowd made a massive part in that goal, because that is an error. If you have a look at the way Inter Milan were set up, they didn't set up well for that throw-in. And we've rattled them. The noise of the crowd's rattled them at that point. The fact that we've got back into it and gone to each that quick. I think we made a massive part in that goal.
It's a brilliant point. I think you're absolutely right. And folk, I mean, you watch games of football, I always say there's something that's invisible with football that's so important. It's called momentum. And it can chop and change. And it happens, I watch a lot of snooker too. And for whatever reason, sometimes you just see the momentum swing and you're going, how did that even happen? Do you know what I mean? But suddenly, all the breaks in the ball that you need to get, you want to win the throw-in, you win a throw-in up there 90 seconds later, you're scoring from it. And I think Johansson deserves a lot of credit. Just a wee bit of inventory sort of, it's kind of over his head he's volleyed that. Do you know what I mean?
It was.
Kind of not looking as well, but just put it in the mixer. And I think at that point when you've got the momentum going that way, sometimes just getting it in the mixer, no matter how you do it, is enough to cause a wee bit of panic in their defence, which you certainly seen with Campagnaro slotting it home with aplomb.
It's like quickness. It's like, I'm getting this ball into the box to cause havoc. It's not taking the touch to have a look. It was how Ronnie Dyler wanted to play football, was to cause chaos in the last third, and that ball caused chaos. Lee Griffiths jumping, knowing he had no chance of getting the ball, caused chaos. Yeah. And Stuart Armstrong reading where that ball was going. It was a good goal. Even the first goal was a great goal as well. And the place goes absolutely bonkers when we equalise then. And then, between then and half-time, the game seems to take a breath. Both teams seem to settle down and go, right, we're level pegging now. Inter Milan go, well, we've got like 2 away goals, and Celtic are going, we've used a lot of energy to get ourselves back into this game. Let's take a wee deep breath and try and get control of it. And that's what you call
agreement.
There's a mutual agreement, and you see it in games all the time. If there's a bit of to and fro, and then sometimes both teams take a wee step back and go, well, we're going to have a think about this, what we do next. And I think it's very modern in the modern game that you see teams having that little braver go, right, where do we go next? Because it gets all very, very tactical. And nothing much happened between the 24th minute and the 44th minute when there's a long ball and Palacio burst through. I must admit, he does look offside to me. Even when I was watching it on the highlights tonight, and even when I was at the stadium, I'm going, he's offside, and he still looks offside. Adam Matthews tracking him, but he stops because it's Craig Gordon's ball. Gordon's off his line. Gordon's read it really, really well, but for some reason, Gordon seems to misjudge it. He overstretches himself, drops the ball, he half drops it, half palms it, and Palacio, who's carried on running, I mean, you can actually see the way Palacio runs. He's gave up, he's gone, that's the keeper's ball, but I'm just running anyway to try and put a bit of pressure on him so he can't get up and bowl it out quick. And he misjudges it, he overstretches, and Palacio sticks it in. And you're going, we've got ourselves back into this game, and now we're 1 minute away from half time, and our goalkeeper's made another howler.
Well, I think from that one, firstly the point you've raised with it comes to Matthews and Palacio is the difference. One of them's gambled, one of them's not. I think the other one is that we need to be honest. It's a Craig Gordon. It's a wicked skid off the ground. So he's misjudged it 100%, but it does seem to kick. Do you know what I mean? When it bounces, it does seem to kick. But then it's about his decision making again. Why are you trying when the ball's now behind you to actually hold it? That's where I think you would just got to swipe it with your hands, push it out for a shot, because the ball's flying across the ground. It's just proved it off that bounce. If he gets a strong enough hand, even if he's put it out for a corner, he might look a bit daft. But trying to hold it when the ball's now actually skidded, if you watch it, he's chasing it almost, and that is not a moment to try and hold it. Just punch it in front of you. If that means it goes out for a corner, or at best maybe a shy right up in our territory, so be it. But trying to hold it at that point, once he'd already realised the ball was like a bar of soap, was silly.
It was silly because
the bad bit was, I forgive him for the bounce misjudgment though, Kev. I think that does kick.
It's absolutely chucking it down. And I remember at the time thinking, and it came to again last night when I was watching the highlights again, I was going, that ball was
quiet, Kev.
Oh, is that better?
Wee bit. Unless it's just mine.
Nah, I've not changed, and I'll move the microphone close to me. I've just knocked my microphone over.
I love this show.
Oh,
this is the best fun ever.
It's chaotic genius. It's for those that were out there, it's like the Mark and Lard of State of Mind. What I would say when I was watching it again last night, I thought the ball was skidding out. I thought Gordon could have left it and it was going to skid out the park.
That's fair, but I think because he's not expecting that bounce, he's already committed to going to get it. And then, yeah, I suppose, as I say, the ball was behind him, so you're right, he could have. But once you've already kind of made a motion to get the ball, he can't resist, but he's going to make one of these fake saves again. But the bounce is wicked. The bounce is wicked. It's cruel on him, I think, the bounce. But why he's trying to hold that, once he's dived on it, I would just, to me, I would just be, I know it's going to look ridiculous, but I'll just palm it out for a corner or a goal kick. But again, you're looking at milliseconds judgment you've got to make, but he does look a bit dafty.
I think he panics again. I think like the first goal he panics. I think like the first goal he panics again, and it's, as I say, I watched it again last night and I think the ball was going to spin out the park. Now we're getting at half time. I'm all right, Russell, you're looking a bit.
I don't know if it's my phone, the microphone, I can barely hear you, but I don't know, it must be at my end, mate.
Right. The folk are coming in the comments saying the audio's fine, so...
It must be my phone, pal.
Right, no problem. So, the second half, and we've gave Craig Gordon a bit of, like no abuse, but we're saying he's been at fault for the 2 goals, which is true. But he makes a couple of saves in the second half to keep us in the game, and nothing really happens in the game in the second half. The complete chaos of the first half disappears, and it becomes we're huffing and puffing trying to get the third goal. So on the 75th minute, Ronnie Dyler makes 2 substitutions. It's a double sub. He takes off Stuart Armstrong and brings on Liam Henderson, and he takes off Griffiths and brings on John Guid. Both have a massive role to play in the equalising goal. So on the 92nd minute, Guidetti turns for the ball 22 yards out, and he knocks the ball to Gary Mackay-Steven. Gary Mackay-Steven makes an absolute mess of it. The Inter player, I think it's Vidal actually, gets a toe in, and he knocks it to Liam Henderson. Liam Henderson plays a clip ball back to Guidetti. Now, this is very similar to the Stefan Johansson one. There's no thinking about it as going, I'm putting this in an area. Yes. It's one of these balls. If Nakamura had played it, we would have called it genius. But the fact is, it's a wee guy for West Lothian. It's played the ball. It's no ranked as a genius ball. So he plays it back into the box. Guidetti has carried on his run. So Guidetti then brings it, chests it, and we spoke about Peter Grant having the perfect body shape last week for a ball through to George Cadet. When Guidetti volleys this ball with his left foot, he has a perfect body shape. It's because he's got a perfect elevation when he fires this ball into the top corner. And again, Celtic Park goes absolutely mental, absolutely berserk. That was John Guidetti's first goal in 11 games for us.
Yeah. It was a really spectacular finish, in fairness. And what I like about Guidetti is he's involved from the beginning. He does a nice wee bit of skill as well before his pass, which was really nice. Then he's continued his run into the box. But, the thing is with Guidetti, he backs himself. One of those folk that he's a confident it was at times perhaps a wee bit irritating, but he is a confident sort of player who has utter belief in what he's going to do, and when he brings the ball down, it's actually quite an awkward height, I think, when he takes the volley. Like, see when he strikes the ball, it's quite high, and to keep it down enough for it to go under the crossbar, albeit hit the roof of the net, was really good techers. And again, you've got to take into context, we've spoken about this before, timing, environment, match situation, importance, all of those factors. When you blend all that in with then that technique, you go, that's pretty special to be doing that, you know what I mean? Although I did read on the Celtic wiki, kudos, that Stuart Armstrong's first goal was actually voted into the top 10 of the competition that season. It
was, yes, it was number 8 in the UEFA Europa League competition that season. I think it was because it was a team goal. It was a very, very good team goal. But for me, Guidetti's goal was individual brilliance, and something that we never saw enough from John Guidetti in his time with Celtic. He made a great start in that. But Ewan Boy Martin comes in, Guidetti's worst goal celebrations ever. He jumped the advertising board and went like that. He was, I don't know what he was doing there. Free
I don't know. I don't know what that was all about. But he is one of those players that I think if he'd not, I like the fact he had a lot of self-belief, but I definitely think he thought he was too good for Celtic. And I think that came back and...
I think that came back and bit him. I think
if he'd kept the confidence that appreciated Celtic for what they were, that could have been a match made in heaven, I think.
Definitely. So, after the game, Guidetti, I mean, what you've got to remember, this is a 92nd minute, and he's got the balls to absolutely volley this ball into the back of the net. Right, he has the composure to do that in the 92nd minute. That's a sign of a player. Guidetti, after the game, says, the myths I've heard about Celtic Park on a European night are true. You can't.
It's a good one.
That's a great statement. And Ronnie Dyla again. This is one of Ronnie Dyla's greatest. The way he built up this game, and after this game, what he actually says: when you stand behind your team when it's 2-0 down, it means so much to us, and that is what this club is about. The supporters, Ronnie, Ronnie, man, that is. I want to get a big Ronnie roar. I love the Ronnie roar as well. I love the Ronnie roar as well. What a night, obviously, became what happened in the second leg, but that's one of my best ever European nights at Celtic Park. That's up there, even though we didn't get the result. That's still a game I fondly remember.
A classic, mate. An absolute classic.
You talk about Guidetti being arrogant. If I was to ask you on the 94th minute when we're leaving Celtic Park that night, who was going to have the better career, John Guidetti or Stuart Armstrong, what would you have said?
John Guidetti, I would have said, despite his barren run, I felt he had star quality about him. And I remember he did a spell at Feyenoord, I think, where he'd scored something when he was about 18. He'd got 21 and 21, something like that, in the Eredivisie. And I just thought, bring him over to Scotland. Maybe he's had a barren spell. Maybe the team's not been performing that well, though. But if we've got someone who can score that sort of goal return there, I think he could go on and replicate that for us. And he was at the right age. He was affordable. And I was expecting him to be someone we had for 3 or 4 years up front. When we signed him, I was buzzing out. I was total buzzing because I'd known about him. I'd remembered when he'd done that record in Holland. It was on Sky Sports at the time, or something like that anyway. They were speaking about it. I thought, wonder if we could get him one day, because it was only a loan deal. Mm-hmm. I remember I was buzzing when we got him, and I did think he would go into bigger and better things, but I think it was Celta Vigo he went to, wasn't it? It was
Celta Vigo he went to. What you've got to remember about Guidetti when we're talking about his attitude was that he was signed at 16 by Sven-Goran Eriksson for Man City, and he had a host of clubs in Europe chasing after him. he had a few loan spells, as the one you mentioned in Feyenoord. He went back into the Man City team, but then he was injured quite a lot. And he was basically coming to Celtic was his last chance at a big club because of his injuries at Man City. He got off to a great start. He was brilliant the first couple of games for us. And what you've got to remember is that was his first appearance in Europa League because he wasn't allowed to play in the group stages. He was cup-tied for the group stages, or there'd be no sign-him in time. So that was his first appearance in the Europa League for Celtic that season. That was his first appearance in Europe. So after he started Celtic, right, we wanted to sign him and we offered him a contract because what you've got to remember, Russell, is he was out of contract that summer. He was a free transfer. That's right. He was a Bosman. And you're talking about he had 15 goals and 11 assists. So Celtic started offering him a contract and it seemed to tail off. I mean, he actually says in an interview, he actually says in an interview with Celtic that he owed Celtic nothing when Celtic offered him a contract. He then had the end of the League Cup final where he took the huff when James Forrest took a penalty kick and he wanted the penalty kick. What you've got to have a look at, he made a great start for Celtic. He made a fantastic start for Celtic, but he only scored 4 goals in the last 24 games of his Celtic career. He left Celtic when he was 23 and he joined Celta Vigo when he was 23. And what he says when he left Celtic, and this maybe proves his attitude, was, I went to Celtic and smashed it in the first half of the season. Celtic's a massive club, but I like big games. I don't like, with respect, Ross County away. I love for we did the impossible. He also actually speaks about that when Celtic won the league that season, he says none of the players got drunk and it was boring. So that's what he actually says. But I must admit, I like that attitude. I did the impossible. I do like that. I do like a player who wants to do things like that. But I think he thought he was better with Celtic. So he went to Celta Vigo after that, as you rightly say. Do you ken where he is now?
Is it Alaves?
He's at Deportivo Alaves. And last year he was on loan to Hannover 96 in the Bundesliga 2. They sent him on loan to a Bundesliga 2 team. At the time, transfermarket.com says he was worth, when he left Man City for Celta Vigo, he was worth 8 million. Transfer Market now saying he's 29-year-old and he's worth £1 million, and he's only played 96 minutes of football this season. He's never started a game for Alaves and he's made 7 appearances from the bench.
That's sad, eh? That's sad. I mean, he's at the peak of his powers now. I just think that he could have done a lot more with his career. I appreciate that he was injury ravaged when he was younger, and that would have hampered the opportunity at City, and I do get that side of it, but I certainly think that he could have done better than that. Can you hear me all right, by the way? Sorry, I'm joining the old headphones club, man.
Aye, I can hear you. You're fine. I can hear you. A couple of folk have said I'm a bit blurry. It looks all right here, and there's nothing I can do if it coming out and coming back in. But as long as the audio's fine, then hopefully you're still getting the same enjoyment of the night.
Oh, it's an improvement, Kev.
I ken you were going to say that. I set you up for that. I set you up like Adam Matthews setting up Stuart Armstrong. You can probably say the only 2 trophies Guidetti won has won so far in his football career have been with Celtic. That's only 2 club trophies that he's won so far. But he's had a number 1 single in Sweden.
He has not.
Yes.
He has not.
He has. A band called Bad Påken. I'm not Swedish, so I probably says that completely wrong. Had a number 1 single in June 2015 with a song called Johnny G, the Guidetti song. It is typical Eurovision rubbish. It's on YouTube. If anybody wants to go and check it out on YouTube, it's absolute pants. And it starts off with the female vocalist saying, "I want you so badly, Johnny G." So
wow,
Johnny G. That's probably the highlight of his career.
He probably just ruined that goal a bit for me, to be honest with you, knowing that.
Didn't he listen to the song? It's like a failed entry for the Eurovision Song Contest.
How far into it did you get?
A minute and a half.
That's not bad. That's fair.
I got a minute and a half into it.
No, that's fair dues, Kev. I would say that's giving it a bit of effort, to be honest with you.
I was taking one for the team, mate. I had to take one for the team when I was doing the research about Johnny G. And
Johnny G. Wow.
And he's forever going to be called Johnny G from now on. And it was Johnny G. And the way to spell Johnny is Johnnny. I wouldn't have spelled his Johnny like that. But
that's very strange. That's bizarre.
So we both would have agreed that Stuart Armstrong. We both would have said when we left the game that night we would have fought John Guid.
John Guid for me.
Johnny G would have had a better career than Stuart Armstrong.
Yeah.
Never happened that way. Stuart Armstrong for me is like a testament of how hard work, dedication and talent gets you places. Producer Paul comes in, John equals Johnny, Jonathan, Johnny. Oh, that's producer Paul, editor head coming in there. If you ever get anything edited by producer Paul, you'll ken where he's coming from then. And he needs to edit my stuff quite heavily. I'll let you know. So Stuart Armstrong had joined in that January 2015.
Yes.
And he joined with his pal Gary Mackay-Steven. And it was very, very truthful. He was looking for a move to England. He didn't want to come to Celtic. He was looking for a move to England. But obviously Dundee United done the deal where we brought Gary Mackay-Steven and Stuart Armstrong at the same time. I think I was probably more looking forward to seeing Gary Mackay-Steven than what I was Stuart Armstrong, but it's strange how things turn out.
But I was at the time as well. I have to agree with that massively. I loved his trickery, and I thought he's going to really excite the supporters. I thought, and in fairness, I had a few Dundee United fans who drank in the pub at the time, who were season ticket holders. I know it's a million miles away, but they genuinely were. And they all said to me, no, Armstrong's the one that you wanted. And I hadn't really watched enough, and they were like, oh, you've got him for a snip. I think he was £1.6 million.
I think in total, Brown Warrior comes in again and he says it was a good deal, about 2.5 million. I think it was about 2.75 for the two of them. I don't think it was ever put in how much we spent on both of them.
I think it was less than that.
It might be. But he was looking for a move to England. That was always his ambition, was to move to the English Premiership. I met Stuart Armstrong at a night at the Kerrydale Suite. It was a Celtic Quick News charity night. And he was the guest of honour. He had just signed. And I remember getting told to go across and speak to him because he was just hanging about waiting to do the presentations and all of that. And I must admit, he's the only footballer that's ever asked me what I did for a living. It was the only one that was interested in what I did for a living. He was a nice fella. On the pitch, he had good intelligence for a midfielder. He had a good physicality, great energy. He could get box to box quite easily, and he could shoot for the edge of the box. And that came to the fore of Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers' invincible season, a true invincible season, when he scored a number of screamers from the edge of the box. That's where he came into his own. And for me, his best goal was a cup final. We had just lost the goal to Johnny Hayes. Aberdeen never touched the ball again, and he strokes one in at the bottom corner.
Brilliant hit. Yeah. But yeah, I think with Armstrong, I mean, I think he's went on to Southampton. I think he certainly proved himself to be Premier League quality. I think it's a shame because I just don't see, I think he's 29 now, something like that. I don't see him getting that next move up the ladder, if I'm being honest. I think he'll need to settle for Southampton or a sideways move. Maybe a Newcastle, he could maybe I don't know, playing in front of more fans might entice him, but again, similar in sort of league standings. I actually think Armstrong was capable of better than Southampton, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I think he's, I think, like you say, he's a very intelligent player, and I think the better the players around him, the better he can perform. He's certainly not found goals hard to come by in the English Premier League either. Fair play to him.
Not at all. I think he's become a respected player in that Southampton side, and he had a poor start while he adjusted. I think he got injured as well. But when you look at him now, he's one of the first names on that Southampton team sheet. And again, I'm going to put that down to Brendan Rodgers. I'm putting that down to Brendan Rodgers, who, yes, he always wanted to play. Stuart Armstrong always thought he had the ability to play in the Premiership, and I maybe agree with you now, Southampton might be his level. But as you say, he'll get like you called it a sideways move, but it'll be an expensive sideways move. It will be it'll be a move that will set him up for life. He is already set up for life with the move to Southampton. But I do like players that leave Celtic and go down to the English League and boss it.
Oh, of course.
It doesn't matter what level it is, because it looks good for us as a football club that this player went down there for a snap £7 million. When you look at some of the players, if you transfer a Championship player to a Premier, I mean, there's players go from League One to the Championship for £7 million. There's not many players go down there and become a first-team player in a mid-table side in the English Premiership for £7 million.
No, definitely not.
It's very unusual. I like it. And I think a lot of people actually say, we've discussed it plenty of times in the bulletin, I think Ryan Christie sees Stuart Armstrong and fancies a bit of it.
Yeah, I think it's been discussed before. Apparently that's, there's some sort of, he's been, advised or something. I think they're Pally and Armstrong's maybe sold him on the move. I think the one thing I would say for Christie is I think he could be very disappointed if he thinks he'll be going to Southampton. I don't see it personally. I really don't. I mean, my judgment's only my own, of course. I'm sure there's other people in the know or that have a better eye for a footballer than me. But I think if he goes down there, if he's in the Premier League, it'd be a Burnley, something like that. I think most likely, Ryan Christie will find himself in the Championship next year, though, if I'm being totally honest with you.
Well, obviously, looks like Celtic have not clarified that we've probably made a mess of his contract, so he's free to sign with anybody in the summer there, eh? And what Ryan Christie's probably looking for is a decent Euros, a decent showing with Scotland in the 3 games that he's going to get in the Euros. And he would hopefully get that Euros bounce, which sometimes sees players going to clubs that they should never get near.
That's a good point.
Cal Probosky, probably one of them. How many players do you see after tournaments ending up at big clubs?
Shavin.
Aye.
Shavin.
I mean, that's a good shout. That is a really good shout. What I think the main difference between Armstrong is, Armstrong had that physicality. Even when he was up here, he was built well. But when he went down there, the English Premier League is a completely different game from Scotland. And you've got to bulk up again. And you've got to be that physical. And you've got to have the physicality and the athleticism. And that's something Ryan Christie, for me, is going to find difficult. When he goes down. I think Armstrong had a better base to make that jump up.
I think that's
what Ryan Christie's is going to find. But for me, I think we missed Ryan. I think we missed Stuart Armstrong when he left. I think we have. I mean, he did tail off in the 2017-2018 season, but I think Celtic did as well at that point. But he made his intention clear when he only signed a one-year deal, a one-season extension, eh? But you have a look at that. If we go to the Euros, and me and Russell have discussed this, we are going to do some Euro-themed Screamacelicas when it gets to that point during the summer, and we are going to look at some tournaments in that, eh? But you look at that Scotland midfield, you've got Stuart Armstrong playing really well in the Premiership. You've got John McGinn. I need to mention John McGinn, and that'll cause folks wailing in national teams and doing really well in the Premiership as well. I mean, it's like Scotland have got a decent workman-like midfield. Ryan Fraser as well, doing well for Newcastle. But what's really strange is Ryan Christie gets in before Stuart Armstrong and Steve Clarke's Scotland side, which I find really bizarre. That might change right enough, but I'm pleased for Stuart Armstrong. I'm actually pleased for Stuart Armstrong because he was a nice fat guy. He done well for us for that season. He's always going to be welcome back at Celtic Park because he's an invincible treble winner.
Sure. I think that's fair.
Whereas John Guidetti could have been a hero. John Guidetti could have been a Celtic hero, and he blew it and went to Celta Vigo, and he's played a total of 96 minutes this season. That's the tale of a modern day footballer, eh?
Yep, 100%.
It is. Let's go into music.
Hey!
Let's go into, well, we already mentioned music with Johnny G, the Guidetti song, number one in Sweden in 2015.
That's actually what I was going to cover.
Oh, was it? Oh, I've just ruined your moment, mate. Right, number one in the charts. I mean, there was slim pickings this week, eh? Absolute slim pickings. What we were going to talk about. I mean,
there was two games that me and Kev discussed. The first one, the highlights reel was abominable. I mean, it was like impossible to watch. And then the second one, the charts, wow. Like 2015, April time was a bad month for music, mate.
It was. It's one of those post-Christmas where bands are throwing out albums and the charts are full of stuff that folk have got iTunes vouchers and that and have bought that have been released the previous years. The previous year, the charts is full of that. In the charts, the single charts, number one was Love Me Like You Do by Ellie Goulding. I know nothing about that song.
Can't be bought with her. Rubbish.
I know nothing about that song. At number three was Uptown Funk. Another dreadful bit of
just
trash.
Gets on. I just think that's like listening to, I don't know, some sort of Michael Jackson song or some sort, happy Motown song and thinking you can put it all together in a wee pop format and get called the best producer of all time. Absolute nonsense. That Matt Ronson can take a running jump. Hopeless.
It's dreadful, utterly dreadful. Still played now on certain radio stations that if you're unlucky to be in the car and they're on. At number 10, this really surprised me.
Go on.
Earned It by The Weeknd, and I'll tell you why it surprised me. I had never heard of The Weeknd to the Super Bowl halftime show in January there, no February, the first week in February there. I can't believe The Weeknd's 6 years old. I can't believe he was in the charts 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would have thought they were a wee bit more modern than that. I've never really listened to them, to be honest, but they're a big band, like.
Well, it's one person. It's one guy. It shows you how much you can about him. It's the guy who's actually
I've heard of them.
The Weeknd. As I say, I had never heard of him at a halftime.
What's the chances of that, man? What is the chances of that?
I had never heard of him at the Super Bowl halftime show. I'm going, who is this guy? I didn't ken who this guy is. The album charts, In the Lonely Hour by Sam Smith. I know nothing about that either. Nothing. Number 2 was X or Multiply by Ed Sheeran. Now, again, Ed Sheeran's massive. He's like a busker and plays an acoustic guitar at stadiums. But
dreadful.
Again, it's an album I haven't got a clue about. And
dreadful. Number
3 is If You Are Reading This, It's Too Late by Drake. Again, I'm completely lost.
Not a clue.
I'm completely lost about that. So, Russell, what album that you're going to talk about this week?
I've been delighted with my choice this week, Kev. Now,
definitely.
It was actually released in April the year before, but it must have done better than I thought because it was still in the charts a year later on, and it was, as we said, it was slim picking. So I was like, I know it didn't come out then, but it was still relevant. It was in the charts in April 2015. I think it was around number 25, 30. Caustic Love by, is that how you pronounce it? Caustic?
Aye, Caustic Love.
Caustic Love by Paolo Nutini. Listen to it today doing the hoovering. Outstanding album. Outstanding and so much better. We've done a lot of revisionism. It's a lot better than I remember it getting. I know it says, like, when you read the reviews, critically acclaimed and stuff. This album is a lot better than I remember it getting the credit for at the time, and is a lot better than I probably gave it credit for at the time. It starts as it means to go on with Scream, and then there was 2 songs that I really liked, and that was Better Man, which I know is a wee bit slower and cheesy, but he delivers soul on it, man, and that's the difference. It just comes over so genuine and real. It's amazing. And then the other one is One Day, I think. What's it called? One Day? I've got the track list up. One Day, track number 4. I blew my head off hearing that again. I remember that getting played in the jukebox. I'd forgotten about that. So I got right into the Spotify elite playlist today, Kev. I tell you that. Outstanding tune. I know Iron Sky was obviously much feted at the time, but it was, again, having that on the old headphones today, I was lost in it. I listened to the full thing, track 1 to 12, 13. My eyesight's terrible. And I'll be honest, there's a couple of fillers. There's one of those tracks that's like really short, like a minute long. That does my head in, to be honest to you. That aside, I thought at times it was reminding me a bit of Amy Winehouse sort of vibes I was getting. I know the production's very heavy. I know we're talking about Amy Winehouse recently, so I'd listen to a wee bit of her. And I was getting a wee bit of vibes of that with the bass lines and stuff. It was very, very good anyway. I loved it.
It's not an album that I own, but it's an album that played a major part in my life because my wife is a major Paolo Nutini fan, and we went down to Newcastle to see him on the Caustic Love tour. I think it was opening night of his tour in Newcastle, and he opened up with Scream, and it was fantastic. He put on a great show. The guy can chant. He's a very, very talented guy in a world which is full of successful people who are not as talented as
and soulless, mate. Soulless. He has soul, this guy.
He has, as you say, he's a bit real. He keeps it. He's very, very grounded for a guy that's so talented, and he plays like the sort of what can I say, the stoner image very, very well.
Yeah, exactly.
The sort of laid back, I'm not really bored about this, and he's got a voice like that. And when you see a number of Nutini wannabes now kicking about, if you ever watch any of the reality TV shows, you see folk trying to be like basing their act on Nutini, try to be basing their voice in that on Nutini, And he's like, and as somebody says in the comments here, Michael the boy, he's a right good Celtic man as well. But
always helps, doesn't it? Always helps.
Come on, for as long as I've been doing Screamacelica and also like a Celtic State of Mind, all the talented folk for Scotland are Tims. It's a proven fact that if you've got any talent in Scotland, you're a Tim. That's it. It is a proven fact, apart from us two sitting here.
It's hard to argue with that.
I saw him doing it at Newcastle. Then he headlined Tea in the Park as well, and I saw him doing that set at Tea in the Park. I think that would have been 2014, maybe 2015. I'm not 100% sure. But where has he been? That was his last album. That was 6 years. That was 6 years ago.
It's quite frustrating actually when you think of someone that's capable of the music that he is capable of. And I think that album was such you were watching him evolving as an artist as well. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was definitely a more mature album, I think, in terms of the type of music it was. I liked the road he was going down. Do you know what I mean? I think he was going slightly off the course he'd been on, which was maybe more mainstream-ish, with a lot of still real good songs involved. This was definitely, I felt, an album he wanted to make. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he's done anything to appeal to the charts with this at all. In terms,
not at all.
He's going to let the music do the talking, and I think that's very much, you could hear like the future of Paolo Nutini being begun, and then nothing since. It's a wee bit, what's happening here? Because I think he was on the cusp of he could have had well, I'm sure he'll come back. I mean, I'm sure he'll come back, but the sooner the better anyway. Come on, Paolo. In fact, come on, Screamacelica, Paolo.
Aye, come on. Play us a wee tune, man. Come on, we'll get you down in the studio, play us a tune. As you say, that album was of, I mean, you couldn't keep on doing These Streets hour and hour again, or Jenny, Don't Be Hasty. He's done that, so he's went a sort of darker way, and it was an artist that size can actually get away with it and still keep his audience, because it's such a massive, such a good album. It's such a good album. But it does make you wonder where he is going, where he is going next. Paul in the comments says he was recording in Dublin last year.
Fantastic.
The Daily Record told me the day when I googled him that he's bought a house in Paisley as well. That used to be a yoga studio. I mean, that's the kind of tidbits that you actually want. And I think the last couple of times that you've seen him since he stopped touring that album, what you've got to remember as well, Russell, I think he toured that album solidly for 2 years. Yeah.
So it's a 4-year gap as opposed to...
Aye, I mean...
do you know what I mean? He's not been away the full 7 years. He's only been away maybe 4 or 5 of those years. Do you know what I mean? 4 or 5 of those years, and 1 year's been under lockdown, and you don't know how he works. You don't know if the band's been in with him or anything like that. So it could just be that he'd maybe dropped something this year. Who knows? Aye, who knows? Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Hopefully, Paolo, get yourself on here. Get yourself on A State of Mind. Get yourself on Screamacelica. Don't bother about anybody else's show. Just get on Screamacelica.
We called it first.
We called it. We Bagsy Paolo. The album that I'm going to speak about is they're one of the stalwarts of the British indie scene. And this is a 12th studio album. 12 albums. It's the Charlatans with Modern Nature. I love the Charlatans. I've loved the Charlatans since I saw then on, would have been the Chart Show, I think. You won't remember this. It was a programme on a Saturday morning called the Chart Show, which basically played videos. And it was before, what was the one Ant and Dec done with Cat Dealey? What was that show called? Was that... They done a sort of pop. They done a sort of chart. SMTV, that was it. SMTV, yeah. It was before that, and basically the chart show used to go to the indie charts and play you stuff by The Fall, and so every Saturday morning you would get some bizarre band appearing on primetime kids TV, and I remember watching the Charlatans on that day and then. And I'm going, that's decent. It's very psychedelic. I liked the organ. I really loved the Spiral Carpets at that time. I was buying the NME, and so obviously fell in love with the Charlatans. But as the Charlatans have moved away from that, what's great about the Charlatans is it's one of these bands that fashion doesn't even seem to matter to. They just keep on going, and they keep on producing decent albums, like... again and again. Somebody in the comments said James McCann mentioned James, a great band as well. The Charlatans are like James. They're both from together.
Just stole, honestly, literally what I was just about to say was, could you say they're quite the equivalent to what we were talking about last week surrounding James?
Aye.
I can't believe you have just done that. I was literally on the tip of my tongue saying that. Mad. Well done, James, mate.
Both disappeared.
Have we? I can still see it ticking along.
They've disappeared for me there, sorry. Aye, they're exactly like James. They're one of these bands, when you have a look at their later career as well, it's just as good as their earlier career.
Sure.
It's just as good as their earlier career. And, I mean, this is the Charlatans' 12th studio album, and they've had another 3 since then. And they're releasing another one this year. They've just announced their 31st anniversary tour with a gig in Glasgow on the 18th of December at the O2 Academy, which will be quite weird, and Russell's disappeared from me, so I'll just keep on talking. This was the Charlatans' first album since their drummer, John Brooks, unfortunately died from a brain tumour. Oh, Paul's coming in now. What's going on here?
I thought I'd sit in. I know I'm not as good looking as Russell, and I don't dress as well, but I thought I'd come in because he disappeared. I didn't want you getting lonely, Kev.
No, that's perfect, Paul. You kind of like somebody to talk to. What do you think of the Charlatans, Paul? Again, this will be a subject right up your street.
I've always been a massive fan. The thing with the Charlatans, it's one of the bands I remember my big sister and my big brother being into when I was a wee bit too young to actually buy my own music. And then it was almost just like that procession where you got into them, seen them live loads of times, mainly in Glasgow, but I went down to Newcastle to see them, seen them in Aberdeen. They always get called survivors, don't they, because of all the heartache and all the rest of it. But Russell, Kevin is frozen. I thought I would just keep your seat warm.
I appreciate it, mate. I don't know. I disappeared as well. I don't know what happened, man.
I'm banging on about the Charlatans there.
Aye, good band, mate. Good band. A lot of longevity.
Well, the thing that Kev was saying is like their kind of more recent material has to be explored. My favourite album of all time, Charlatans album, is the eponymous The Charlatans, but I love telling stories as well, and Some Friendly. I still listen to Some Friendly, so aye, brilliant, superb. And you know, there's been so many times where you thought the band could have split up, but they just keep going on, and hopefully that will continue.
I like his sorry. I was going to say, I can't tell when you're going to talk, Kev. You see, it's just a blank screen at the top.
You've just got this massive green contraption coming out your mouth, Kev.
I've just got a black screen. It's just black at my... I don't know. But I was going to say, I like how he's reinvented as well, like this whole listening party he's brought into play as well, Tim Burgess, which shows that he moves with the times so well. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's smart enough to go, right, how could we connect everyone during lockdown? And he just gets everyone on Twitter to put on an album at the same time and then all use the same hashtag and comment on it. And I think that's such a it's so simple, but just shows that a guy is still very much, you know, at the front of knowing how to keep an audience in mind.
See, for me, he's a national treasure. As you say, he's reinvented himself, he's reinvented his look. And the band have reinvented themselves as well after numerous setbacks. I mean, they lost the original keyboard player to a car crash, and they also armed robbery. He ended up in jail for being a getaway driver in a post office raid, which he actually admits that he didn't know nothing about. So this album as well, and then they lost their drummer just before this album. So the drums on this album are played by Gabe Guernsey from a fantastic band called Factory 4. Stephen Morris for New Order also plays drums on this album for them. And Pete Salisbury for The Verve also plays drums on this album for them. So Pete Salisbury is actually now their live drummer. From the Verve. So anytime you go to see the Charlatans, it's Pete Salisbury that's on the drums. I went to see them when they were doing this tour at the Usher Hall, and I must admit, I've never seen such a dour Edinburgh crowd since Love Street 1986. The Charlatans were actually filming this gig for obviously a DVD release, and it's never seen the light of day. And I'm not surprised it's ever seen the light of day. For me, this is one of their better later albums, and they deserved a better crowd that night. This gig should have been in Glasgow. I'm going to show my West Coast bias here, but if this gig had been in the Barrowlands, it would have been brilliant. But the fact is, it was a Monday night in the Usher Hall, and it was complete and utter flat. I think we're suffering for technical difficulties here, Russell. So I think it's been
another good show, mate.
It has been another good show, but I think we be as well calling it a night. Subscribe. I'm pointing up and down, but I've probably frozen, so I don't care if I've frozen or no.
Subscribe
down below. Tell your pals. Tell folk that you didn't like about us, and everybody calm down.